Good morning and welcome to the Aviation Education Program Updates. My name is Mark Harrell. I'm the Engineering and Aviation Program Consultant for the Kentucky Department of Education in the Office of Career and Technical Education. Unfortunately, we should be doing this live in person at the Kentucky CTE Summer Conference that's housed at the Galt House every July, but unfortunately, I'm sitting in my dining room to present this to you. So we're going to go through updates as it relates to our aviation career pathways, both the maintenance pathway and the flight, Navy, and aeronautics pathway. Help you understand what's coming for 2021, align you to some resources that you may need if you continue to be virtual or doing hybrid or some sort of blending learning model, as well as resources that will help you right in your classroom. I wanted to spend a couple minutes just helping you understand the Teams platform that we're in. So we're using Microsoft Teams. We're using a component of it called Live Event. So all attendees are muted just to have a seamless presentation. On the right side of your screen, you should be able to access the question and answer section of Teams. I will go through that Q&A section at the end of the presentation, answer any questions that you may have. So if something doesn't make sense on the slide that I present, feel free to pop a question in there and we'll go through those towards the end. More than likely, if you have a question, another person probably has a similar question. At the conclusion of all the virtual sessions that I'm hosting today, probably by early next week, I'll send you a PD certificate for attending this session and or the other sessions that I'm hosting. And I'll just pull out the Teams participation list right here out of this. We'll also a PDF version of the slide deck that you're looking at now, and also a recorded link on YouTube, so you can go back and review anything that you may want to, or click the links that are embedded into the PowerPoint as well. I kind of want annually I try to make these PowerPoints kind of a resource deck that you can use. Go back and click on links to get to web pages that you may need to access at a later date. So let's go through aviation as it existed this year. So we had 14 schools that participated in flight and aeronautics as a pathway, almost 500 students in those 14 schools. We do now have 2 schools doing maintenance pathways, aircraft maintenance, which is exciting. This is in large part due to Bullitt County starting their program, partnering with JCTC, doing a lot of dual credit for those students, as well as one other school. This data is all according to TEDS data. So TEDS is our technical education database system that we use. That's how we track all of our pathways in any career and technical education program area. If on the slide that you see coming up, if your school or program is not listed, you would need to work with your TEDS coordinator in your building to make sure that your program gets put in the system, just so you're going to be part of that accountability model. You'll get access to Perkins funding, and it helps us kind of just know which schools out there are doing what, so we provide resources accordingly. So here on this screenshot, you'll be able to see all the programs out there that we have. Like I said, JCTC partnering with Bullitt County, 31 students are going through that program as it relates to maintenance. And then as far as flight and aeronautics, we have Adair County, Connor High School, Crittenden County, EC3 or Early College and Career Center out of Hardin County, Johnson Central, Bullitt County also has a flight and aeronautics program, Mason County, Monroe, Owensboro Innovation Academy, Russellville High School, Shawnee out of Jefferson County, Shelby County, Washington County, and then Williamstown Senior High School, all have programs, once again, according to TEDS. So if you don't see your school on this list, your area on this list, that means that it was not entered into TEDS. And that, like I said, is kind of critical to make sure that you are kind of part of that accountability model and that sort of thing. So If you have any questions, once again, you can post those right in the question and answer section, and I will answer those in order as they came in at the conclusion of this. We did offer 2 technical upgrade trainings. We actually moved both of these virtually. Some of you on the call were probably a part of one or both of these. So we did a utilizing drones. We partnered with Steam Drones and Drone Blocks. They hosted an online 2-day training. Every participant got a DJI Tello drone that was shipped to them. We did the best we could in a virtual environment. It's hard to really collaborate and do a lot of team building, and communication is always a barrier virtually. But we did the best we could, and the teachers that attended that training better understand how to use and utilize drones, especially as it relates to aviation in their classroom. Another training we did, thanks to the drone engineer at the Kentucky Department of Aviation. He hosted a 1-day virtual training all about safety and regulations. We actually had one of our teachers sit 2 days after that drone safety and regulation training, sit for the FAA remote pilot certificate, and actually passed it. So it was a great training. We hope to offer that one again. And that way we can continue to get teachers certified to be commercial drone pilots. Throughout the year, if you have ideas, this fall, sooner the better, but if you have ideas for technical upgrade trainings that we can offer, these are all funded through our office of CTE through funding that we have. So if you have an idea on anything as it relates to aviation, especially technical upgrades, so maybe software, hardware, safety regulations, and that sort of thing, please shoot those to me in an email, and that way I can try to get those funded. So looking forward, this is kind of a list, a table of contents, if you will, of things that I want to talk about on this call. So we'll go through the program of studies as it relates to the 2021 school year. We will go through the industry certification list as it relates to this school year. Perkins 5, it has some big changes in it. So we've moved from Perkins 4 to Perkins 5, federally approved. Our state department's Perkins plan was approved, so now it's going to trickle down to districts and then on to schools. We'll talk about accountability and how that relates to CTE and the changes that are coming based on some legislation. Talk about minimum graduation requirements, also dual credit that's offered to your students. We'll talk about keys money. That's always important for students to understand. A couple new academic standards that fit into our program and CTE in general. Cover the Google Classroom that you have access to, or if you don't, I'll show you how to get access to that. And then finally, just kind of a one-stop shop for all COVID-19 resources as it relates to the Department of Ed and the Office of Career and Technical Education. So the 2020-2021 career pathways, you will not notice any changes for our aircraft maintenance technician pathway. You can see the zip code there. This is a series of courses that you can offer. Starts out with Introduction to Aerospace and moves on to Fundamentals of Aviation Science. And then those students junior year really start learning about the Introduction to Aircraft Maintenance Technology, and then capstone or co-op or internship when it comes to senior year. So that's just a very logical flow there. We're working with some of our teachers in the aviation program area to kind of refine and better align these pathways, but that you won't see any changes until 21-22. So this pathway hasn't changed. Just wanted to make you aware that it looks exactly as you may be familiar with it. Same with flight and aeronautics. Nothing has changed in this pathway. Still starts out with complete 2 credits, the Intro to Aerospace course, the Fundamentals of Aviation Science, and then choose 2 of the following. So you have Aviation Science, continuing to build those fundamental skills, Commercial Aviation Science, You could offer aerospace engineering, a drones course that we've called unmanned aircraft systems. That course can potentially be dual credit with EKU. I'll talk about that a little bit later. You also have a capstone option, and then co-op and internships are also on that list. Once again, no changes to the pathway, so it should be very easy for your counselors to continue placing students into your program. Again, if you didn't see your school's name listed earlier, you may want to talk to your TEDS coordinator and make sure that your zip code is maybe they used the wrong one. Maybe they just inadvertently left your program area out of TEDS. A new field that falls under the engineering umbrella, the program area, which includes energy as well as aviation. We now have a TRAC zip code. So TRAC stands for Tech Ready Apprenticeships for Careers in Kentucky. This is a youth apprenticeship program. Hours that students earn during this apprenticeship can count towards their registered apprenticeship on the job contact hours that they need. This is a minimum of 3 courses that relate to the apprenticeship, and then a paid co-op goes along with that with an employee partner. So this may be that let's use Bullitt County for an example. Maybe they partner with UPS Worldport in Louisville. They have students taking introduction to aerospace. Maybe they take that intro to aircraft maintenance course, and maybe UPS Worldport says, we really want students to understand electricity and electronics. So maybe UPS Worldport says, I want them to take the electrical electronics engineering course, because that's also offered in Bullitt County. So it does not have to be a scripted pathway that you saw on the previous slides. It could be that you work with your local industry, your local employer partner, and they build out a pathway that fits their needs. And then that student comes to them, they co-op, get paid for that experience, plus they're getting those apprenticeship hours. So this is a pretty exciting new pathway that we have. Once again, it's very individually based. So you wouldn't just say we're doing the engineering track pathway, but you would work with your individual employer. If you're interested in learning more about this, shoot me an email and I can put you in contact with Mary Taylor, who oversees the track program, especially if you already have an industry or an employer in mind that you may be interested in partnering with. It could be the local, the local airport, a local maintenance shop, or fab shop, or somebody like that. But if you need more support on that, I'll be glad to put you in contact with Mary, who leads that initiative. We've talked about industry certs again. I always like to hammer home that this was 2017 Senate Bill 1 that really brought industry certifications to the forefront and made it an annual renewal list. So it's every winter, the WIBs, the Workforce Investment Boards, meet with their local industry folks, and they present their recommendations for industry certifications to the KWIB, which is the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board. So that's the board that oversees the WIBs across the state. We work with them. KDE works with the KWIB to edit and refine the list to make sure that it makes sense, it's not confusing. And then we end up publishing that list in the spring for the following school year. As it relates to industry certifications, unfortunately, as you know, March brought on a lot of school closures and a lot of confusion and a lot of loose ends that were never really tied up. If you do have students that graduated this past year and you bought them licenses or certifications or vouchers for industry certs, you can actually have them come back in based on your reopening and have them sit and test if they need that industry cert or want that industry cert. Maybe it will give them a leg up on a job that's out there, or maybe it'll help them apply for a scholarship. So keep that in mind. There's also about $600,000 in state funding again this year available for students that are on free and reduced lunch to take industry certifications. So if you have a student in your aviation pathway, maybe wants to sit for the private pilot written exam, If they are free and reduced lunch, the district can actually get reimbursed for that student's industry certification cost. So the student would not have to incur that cost. The district could pay for that, and then they would get reimbursed using the reimbursement form that we have. And it may not even be a reimbursement form. It may just be that the district is allocated a certain amount of funding. But anyway, there will be no cost to the district and no cost to free and reduced lunch students. You can see a couple other things here. So we are going to allow virtual proctoring. So if you, this doesn't really relate to aviation because you can't virtually take the FAA certifications, but if you happen to be an engineering teacher on the call, if you're working with Certiport to do an Autodesk Inventor certification, you could do that virtually and it would count for Perkins and accountability purposes. Once again, TEDS, you'll need to enter into TEDS the industry certifications. So this kind of trickles back to what I talked about earlier. If you don't have your pathway into TEDS, then you can't enter industry certifications into TEDS, and then that doesn't help you as far as accountability and Perkins accountability as well. So make sure that both your pathway and your industry certifications are getting entered into TEDS for those accountability purposes. There's also a link up here at the top on how to reopen labs safely. So I would strongly suggest clicking that. I'm not going to read through it right now, but just a good resource when it comes to how to sanitize your lab, how to make sure that your lab is going to open safely for this fall if you are going back in person. Again, the industry cert list is updated annually. And so these are the industry certs that you'll see for 2021. So if you have students that are in the maintenance pathway and are ready and prepared to take the airframe and power plant general written, you can schedule with the FAA testing center nearest you to get your students certified in that. Flight and aeronautics, we have 3 current certifications: the private pilot, the rec pilot or recreation pilot written, and then the remote pilot, which is that drone certificate that we offered that training this summer. The drone certification is actually considered a high demand industry certification, and I'll talk about what that means here in a minute, but I've just highlighted it on the screen just so you're aware. So that certification actually helps your school even more when it comes to accountability. So here you'll understand a little bit more what high demand means. So if the KWIB deems an industry cert on an annual basis as a high demand industry cert, your school would actually receive 1.25 points in the accountability model versus 1 out of 1 for all other certifications that are not high demand. Those are determined by KWIB, and usually it's the industry reaching out to those WIB boards saying this is a certification that we value. You know, so if you have a local airport board, you could have them reach out to your local WIB and say, you know, we really would like to see more students earning the private pilot written exam to really spread the aviation future workforce across the state. If enough WIBs deem that industry certification valid, then it becomes high demand. So if we go back a slide here, if we could kind of lobby our WIBs through our industry, so it's not teachers and principals calling the WIBs and saying add this to the high demand list, but working with your industry boards, your local industry that you have connections with, have them work with the local WIB, so it's kind of a trickle up there. Maybe we can get more of these certifications on that high demand list, and then those will be weighted more in the accountability system. Here you can see how those WIBs are broken out across the state. They're color coded. You'll have access to this once again once I send out this slide deck at the conclusion of the presentation. And then this slide tells you if you're in the Bluegrass region, here's your main contact. So once again, don't, as a teacher or as a principal or CT director, reach out and say, we want to see these be high demand certs, but rather work with your industry. If you're in Western Kentucky, and they can reach out to Sheila Clark, the director of the West Kentucky WIB, and then maybe we can get more of our industry certs on that high demand list. So Perkins 5, I mentioned earlier, is a big change, a big shift. The federal government has changed a lot of things in Perkins, so I wanted to take a little bit of time for you to better understand what that means for your program area. One big change is each program starting in 21-22, so we have this year to kind of get you ready to roll, is required to have a secondary to post-secondary pathway alignment. We've already currently developed one with EKU, and I'll show you a link here in a second that you'll be able to click on when you receive the slide deck to download it. You can tweak it to fit your local needs. This will be reported again through TEDS. So once again, if your pathway doesn't exist in TEDS, then you can't report this, which then means you're not going to get access to Perkins funds. This is something you should be working. So, Bullitt County, I mentioned earlier, with their partnership with Jefferson Community and Tech College, they'll be working directly with them to build out their secondary to post-secondary pathway. These will be due by next May. So we'll have all year, all fall, all winter, and all spring to help get you ready for this. Another big change in Perkins 5 language is you must have a Career Tech Student Organization, or CTSO, aligned to your program area. Otherwise, that program will not be able to use Perkins funds. This will also be reported through TED. So once again, I keep hammering that home, but it's vital that your program and your pathways exist in TEDS. We'll go through size, scope, and quality. I've also created a link here just so you can click that and download and print out the one pager if you need to. But we'll go through that here in a minute. So this is what a secondary to post-secondary program of studies looks like. This is one that Russellville High School helped us develop in partnership with EKU. They aligned it to the aerospace major bachelor's degree that EKU has. We'll be working with EKU this fall to build out an aviation specific flight, like professional flight pathway as well. And then what you'll do is plug in your secondary school up there at the top. If you're satisfied with partnering with EKU, you'll just leave the post-secondary institution there. You will come in and your course sequence for students, and this is kind of an ideal course sequence meeting minimum graduation requirements. Over here we have our CTE core. So in our case, we offer that intro to aerospace. Aerospace engineering was the second course in this list for this particular school. Space systems engineering, and then they were doing engineering co-op and internship for seniors. This is the minimum graduation requirements as it relates to this particular school. So this will need to be tweaked to fit your needs. And then over here, we start listing out what are students going to earn? What are those exit ramps? So when they get to 12th grade, they're obviously going to graduate. This could also list private pilot written exam if this was related directly to aviation and not aerospace. It could be the remote pilot drone certification. Whatever you think that students should be able to obtain by the time they're seniors. You're not going to be held accountable to that, but it's kind of what your end game is, what your goal is over there. This will also be a great document to use with your students, help them kind of map out their plan, as they come in as freshmen, if they're really interested in your program area, help them understand a course sequence that makes the most sense to get them through your program with as much exposure to aviation and starting to align to their post-secondary needs as well. Once we look on the next page, this page I did a couple different screenshots, so it looks a little funky, but freshman year of college, you can see this is now the EKU course sequence that they would take fall and spring semesters. Once again, sophomore year you can see, and then it jumps down into junior and senior year with an ultimate end goal of this pathway being a bachelor's degree. This will need to be signed by both the secondary partner, which is you as a high school, and the post-secondary partner, which in this case would be EKU, or maybe it's JCTC or Somerset Community College, or whoever you happen to partner with. It does have to be signed by both partners, and then it will be uploaded into TEDS. So if you want to start with this template and start tweaking, you're more than welcome to. Like I said, we're going to work with EKU, start building out a pro flight pathway, secondary to post-secondary. If you are partnering with a local institution, if you don't mind to send these to me as you get them completed, that way we just have more and more templates out there for schools to pick up and use. So we want to make sure that we have plenty of these on hand. So as you work on these throughout the school year this year, getting them ready for that May deadline, we just want to make this as easy as possible for you, and also for you to understand all the potential partnerships that are out there. I mentioned that CTSOs or career tech student organizations are now mandatory as it comes to Perkins 5 requirements. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't plug the Technology Student Association. So we have schools all over the state that are doing middle school and high school STEM competitions. We'll host a session later on today that will help you understand everything that's coming as far as TSA is related. This could be the CTSO that you might want to align to. You may already have an engineering pathway in your school doing TSA, or maybe a computer science or IT pathway. And so you could partner with that teacher and help your students get access to TSA as it relates to that CTSO. There is a flight endurance competition directly built into TSA, as well as a lot of leadership competitions. And even, like engineering design would be a great competition for aviation students doing some engineering design work as it relates to aviation. So there's plenty of competitions that your students can compete in, and it would satisfy that requirement of Perkins 5 that's coming out next fall. So not this fall, but it kind of gives you a year along secondary post-secondary pathway to be ready for the 21-22 school year. I mentioned Perkins 5 and the definition for size, scope, and quality. So these are the kind of the indicators that show that you have a high quality program. So KDE defines size in our Perkins as one complete program of studies, and it needs to be aligned to the academic as well as multiple entry and exit points. So that's where that secondary post-secondary pathway really comes into play. So that really shows that you have a complete pathway in place, not just one or two courses, but an entire pathway or course sequence ready for those students. As far as scope goes, this shows that your program of studies aligns to industry certifications. It may align to articulated college credit. It potentially will link to dual credit opportunities for students and or work-based learning. Dual credit could be in academic or technical courses. And then finally, we have the quality indicator. So it should be of sufficient size, offers a sequence of 4 or more CTE credits in that pathway. So it's no longer sufficient just to have 1 or 2 or 3 courses, but you do need to have 4 courses in your sequence. So you'll need to be working with your counselors and administrators if you don't have that sequence in place to really make sure that you meet the quality indicator. Post-secondary connection, that's something that I'll be helping you through this year, aligning with EKU or aligning with your local KCTCS or aligning with another partner that you may have in mind. I'm definitely available all year to help you get that document ready for that May deadline. You do need to have an active advisory panel. So once again, this is kind of your lobbying arm, your advocacy arm of your program. So this could be, a couple members of your local air board, some local industry folks, some parents, some students, getting together just to further refine and make sure the quality of the aviation pathway is where it needs to be. They can also help you then lobby for industry certifications if there was something that wasn't on that list that you'd like to see for aviation and maintenance. And then also help us get more of those industry certs onto the high demand list. Teachers does have to be certified, so that means it meets one of our endorsement requirements. Some of you have gone to AOPA training and that satisfies that. So that although you don't technically have a certification, you do have the ability to teach in our aviation area because of that AOPA high school STEM curriculum that you're using and that you went to their training and passed it. You do have to have a CTSO, that Career and Technical Student Organization, aligned to your program. That, once again, you kind of have a year grace period to figure out which one best fits your program and your pathway. And then your secondary program, your pathway needs to be supported by current labor market data. We have data that shows that pilots are needed, with the maintenance folks are needed, so that's an easy one for us to check that box. And if you need that data for any reason, please shoot me an email and I'd be glad to send it to you. You can also go out to the KY Stats website and pull that down very easily as well. Transition readiness. So this is something that we thought we had under control, and then Senate Bill 158 came along this past cycle and made some changes. It has not been approved by the Board of Ed, so that's, I think, in the August board meeting that will have its first reading. Just know that there are going to be changes coming to transition readiness because of some legislation that was passed this past session. It will be released by the Office of Assessment and Accountability as soon as it is approved by the board. COVID-19, just like last year, state accountability was affected. That may happen again this year. So be looking for communication coming out of KDE's Office of Assessment and Accountability as it relates to state accountability for this school year. Be aware that career readiness and Perkins federal accountability are not identical. So if you remember in what was transition readiness, there were certain benchmarks that your students could meet, industry certifications being one, dual credit being another, end of program assessments being another, and a couple other indicators. Dual credit actually does not count towards Perkins accountability. And so if you have students taking 6 dual credits, that's great for their transition readiness and school accountability. But unfortunately, that was not in our state plan for Perkins. So your student would need to pass an industry certification in order to be considered in the Perkins accountability model. Hopefully that's not too confusing. Schools will be held accountable to Perkins federal accountability regardless of state accountability decisions. So Perkins, being a federal guideline, falls under a different house there, and they'll have to those accountability pieces will still be in play regardless of what KDE decides when it comes to state school accountability. One big change that you'll see coming, exceptional work experience will no longer be part of transition readiness. This is something that was part of it for the 2 or 3 years that transition readiness was what it was. That has been struck out by legislation. So that was one of those kind of outliers that if you had a student, for example, that grew up learning how to fly on his own, maybe you didn't actually have a pathway in your school, but they could document enough work experience to show that they were competent at aeronautics or in aviation. Doesn't really affect us because if you have an aviation pathway, your students wouldn't be able to go through that anyway. It was really set up for schools that had students that were exceptional in a certain pathway that they actually didn't offer. Same Senate bill has made some changes to graduation requirements. This, once again, will have to go through the board and will be released through the Office of Teaching and Learning. These changes affect the graduation qualifiers and the graduation prerequisites. So it used to be that there were certain things that students have to do to graduate. Those are going to be changing, to be determined on how all that plays out, but just know that that's coming. sometime once everything has been approved. Let's talk about EKU's dual credit. So one course, we actually have over 30 students enrolled. It's our largest cohort of Aviation 150 students in this Introduction to Aviation course that's starting this fall. This course is completely online via Blackboard. The EKU professor is the instructor of record. You are more or less just a facilitator, making sure that your students are turning in their assignments. It is a 3 credit hour course. Students can use a couple different scholarships, so they actually don't have to pay the tuition for these courses. This course, until I'm told otherwise, will run it every fall. So if maybe you have some students that are sophomores this coming fall, if you're meeting with them in person or online and they seem to have interest in some dual credit opportunities, that's something that next spring you'll want to get them signed up. So when the fall rolls around, they'll be enrolled and ready to go in this course. We do keep seeing a huge increase in numbers. When we first offered this course, there was five or 10 high school students in the online course, and now, like I said, we're up to 30, and we'll probably have a few more enroll before this course actually starts in mid-August. Another course that we offer at EKU is a drones course. So once again, we have an unmanned aircraft systems high school course. That would be the course code that you use when you enroll students in Infinite Campus. You would then check the box next to them, or your counselors would, saying that these are dual credit students. This course is offered in the spring, so if you have students that are interested in taking this course, 3 credit hours, once again, completely online. This course does prep students to take the FAA remote pilot drone certification. So students should be able to, if they have some experience, take this course and then go sit and pass that test. So it's kind of a win-win. Students can get some dual credit, plus they can pass an industry cert and become a commercial drone pilot. If you have interest in this course, I think the deadline to enroll students for spring is November. So as you start talking to your students this fall, if you have juniors and seniors that are interested, they could definitely sign up and take this course. A couple other courses just to mention that kind of fall under the engineering umbrella. We have a Tech 102 that EKU offers, Technology and Society. They spend half the semester learning Onshape as a CAD software, and then the second half learning Revit as an architecture software. So helping students understand how engineers and technicians solve problems. Once again, it could be a course that your students could take because you fall under the engineering umbrella. They could take this and it would count towards dual credit as far as accountability goes. And then finally, a new course that we're offering at EKU, Con 294, will be construction graphics, helping students use AutoCAD. No experience needs to be required. And this will be in the spring as well. So 3 spring courses. Your students can take up to 2 a semester with EKU. Using scholarships, they probably wouldn't have any out-of-pocket expenses. All 4 classes that I've mentioned are completely online, no on-campus, no work on your part as a teacher in the classroom other than helping to make sure students are staying on task and progressing through the course. What does it look like to enroll students in dual credit at EKU? A quick link is just dualcredit.eku.edu. Must be a junior or senior, must have a GPA of 3.0, must have an ACT score on file. They used to have a minimum ACT. You can see I've crossed that off just so you're aware of that change. So it used to be they had to have a certain score. EKU has taken that off. They just simply have had to have sat for the ACT. They do need to meet any course prerequisites, sorry. Those actually don't exist for any of the courses that I mentioned, so that one's not really a player here. And then your school has to be a participating partner, so there's an MOA that has to be signed between the district. We do have a lot of school districts that are already on that list, already have signed that. A new thing that EKU is doing is what's called the Study Strong Awards. You can see with that arrow pointing over what that means. So students can actually earn up to $2,400 in scholarship money if they end up going to EKU. And this is both dual credit dollars and AP dollars. So if you have students that take, let's say AP European history, and they receive a certain score in that course, they can actually get $300 for an A. You can see $225 for a B and $150 for a C. And that's the same as it plays out for dual credit that they take with EKU. So if they take ABN 150 and they get an A, that's $300 in their pocket when they come to EKU. If they take ABN 170 and get a B, that's $225 in their pocket. So another way to incentivize students to come to EKU after they finish out their dual credit experience. Once again, dual credit scholarship and work ready scholarship are both still in play. Links in this will direct you to that, but that's the money that your students can access, so they don't actually have to pay for dual credit as it relates to our program area. Let's talk quickly about Keys money. There's a couple changes that actually came out last year. I just wanted to kind of reiterate this. So co-op now can actually access Keys money. It used to be that co-op students, if they did 3 credits of co-op, they would just get 1 course Keys money, or 1 credit towards Keys money. Now, if a student takes 3 credits of CTE approved co-op courses, so if they're taking, let's say they're co-oping for 3 hours a day, they would actually get 3 courses counted towards Keys money. So that's really going to help them as far as Keys money is concerned. So another incentive to get students involved in co-oping with your local industry and local employers. Keys, again, as it relates to register apprenticeship. So this is the track program I talked about earlier. So now students can actually get Keys money if they do the track. The track program. So you can see they can actually get reimbursement for tuition, books, uniform, licensure, safety equipment, travel. So they could actually use their Keys money to help pay for some of that as it relates to that registered track apprenticeship that they're going through. Moving on to a couple new academic standards that I wanted to make you aware of that potentially fit into your program area. So we have new standards for career studies. These used to be called vocational studies standards. Now they're called career study standards. And then you can see a couple statutes and a couple regulations on the screen here that kind of drove this work. So you can see that first one there, the minimum graduation requirements, played a role in this. Essential workplace and ethics instruction really drove the work that came along with updating those career studies. There's a new financial literacy component now that students have to take 1 or more courses that meet those financial literacy standards. And then that last KAR down there, the ILP, districts have to implement an ILP, individual learning plan for students. So that's really what drove the work. If you click this link up top, it'll take you right out to the new career studies. This may be something that you want to be familiar with, so you can align to those workplace ethics and financial literacy to show that your program is helping in both respects. Most of you are probably already members of our engineering tech ed. So engineering as a program umbrella that covers engineering, aviation, and energy. We do have an NTI Google Classroom built out. If you're not a member, you can just go and join with this class code you see on your screen here. You'll get that once again when I send out the PDF of this slide deck. And we've broken it into several areas. So we have PD opportunities. Most of those are virtual right now. But if you need to get some PD hours, or there may be something that you're interested in learning more about, we have teacher resources, just general resources in there. Any competitions that relate to our program area. We have a whole section on digital citizenship. So that's a great resource if you're doing remote learning. There's all kinds of career resources, safety resources, things relating to industry certifications, software resources, and then we have program specific. So we have engineering specific resources, aviation specific, and then middle school STEM resources are also available in there. This is just kind of what it looks like when you log in. So I just took a couple screenshots for you to see. So teacher resources, just trying to find mostly free resources that are out there for you, but we also put some paid ones in there, but you'll know that, you know, there's a cost because I'll add that in the description. And then aviation specific, you can see there's a long list, and this was not the whole list, but just what I could fit in a screenshot. So if you're looking for a free drones curriculum, there's actually online drone curriculum out there. AOPA has online learning resources. Civil Air Patrol has a lot of resources out there. A couple of you sent me, like Luke Gilly from Middlesboro Independent sent me the ham radio or the amateur radio practice exams that you can see linked down there at the bottom. If you have a resource that you use, especially when it comes to remote learning or NTI learning or virtual learning, whatever your district is calling it, shoot that to me or just post it directly in the Google Classroom, and then I'll move it into the appropriate area. We do want this to be really an interactive experience, a place that you can post things and kind of collaborate with teachers across the state. So if you're not a member, I encourage you to join. Most of what I post nowadays, instead of just emailing it to the group, I actually just post in here, and then Google Classroom sends you an email. But if you're not part of the NTI Classroom, you wouldn't receive that email. So strongly suggest that you sign up for that Google Classroom resource just so you have access to everything that's in there. Finally, I mentioned just kind of a one-stop shop for all COVID-19 related resources. So we have a CTE specific resource page here. It actually links to a Google Doc with a lot of links and resources in it. Our CTE page itself has a lot of COVID related links in it. Post-secondary has COVID related links that will help you if you're working with a local partner or working with KCTCS. And then KDE in general, safe opening, reopening resources, updates as it relates to COVID-19, because what I say on this call will probably be different in the next 15, 20 minutes, who knows, but ever evolving. So it's good to bookmark these pages and just check them on occasion to make sure that you're doing everything as it relates to safety and safe reopening for schools. I'll leave my contact information here on the screen. I'm going to now turn my attention over to the question and answer section. So if you haven't posted a question that maybe was on the tip of your tongue, you still have time to do that. So I'll go through, we just had a couple things pop in here, but I'll go through those. And then we will end the call, and I'll send you out the resources once I finish all my virtual sessions over the next day or two. Somebody posted, I'm not familiar with Microsoft Teams, so how do I sign in so I can receive my PD certificate? So Microsoft Teams by default creates a participant list. I'll be able to download that out of Teams once the call is over. If by next Monday is when I plan on sending out those certifications, so you can get your PD certificate. If by next Monday you don't receive a cert, just shoot me an email, and that way I know that I missed you, or for some reason Teams didn't. But Teams should have captured your information. If it didn't, shoot me an email on Tuesday, and I'll make sure you get that PD certificate. And then we have more of a comment here, but someone posted, I got my drone license this summer, which is awesome. And then this teacher also learned that AOPA's 11th grade curriculum had, curriculum training that if your students take photos or videos with the drone and then post them on the school website, that's considered promoting your class, and you will need a license for that promotion. So that's a good point there. If your students are going out and taking videos or photos of your program and what you're doing, and you're actually publishing those, that's considered promotion. and you would need a license for that. So good point from that teacher. So keep in mind that there are a lot of safety and regulation guidelines as it relates to drones, and make sure that you're following all those. So thank you for bringing that point up. I'll stay on the call if anybody wants to post any more questions, but feel free to end or to jump off, and I will end the session once the last person leaves. And then, like I said, I'll send out the recording as well as the slide deck and your PD certificate. Expect all those no later than next Monday. I've got a couple of things coming up the rest of this week, but Monday I blocked off some time. Make sure everybody gets their certificate. So thank you again for joining. Hopefully this helps you better prepare for a very interesting upcoming school year. So thank you again. We had one more question come in. It says, what would you recommend for Skills USA as a competition for aviation? I am not super familiar with Skills USA. That would be a question for Kristen, who oversees that. Give me a second. Let me pull up the competition list. I know they have maintenance as a Skills USA competition. Let's see. I'm not sure what they list aviation related. They list their competitions by career clusters. They do under transportation distribution and logistics. They do have that aviation maintenance technology listed. There's nothing else aviation related in that career cluster. Let me look under the STEM one. They have electronics technology, which they have an engineering technology and design competition. I'm not really seeing one directly related to aviation, like a flight simulator type competition or anything like that. And I don't see one under the manufacturing either. If whoever posted that, if you want to shoot me an email and I'll forward it to Kristen, and she may be better suited to answer that question. Or those of you that are on the call, if you know of a competition in skills that directly relates, I can tell you for TSA, not to continue to plug, but that is a third of my job and I like getting paid. We do have a brand new drones competition in TSA that's a regional and state level competition. So students will fly those DJI Telos on a certain path. So I don't have a great answer for you. I apologize, but if you want to shoot me an email, I'll get you in contact with the state advisor for that program area, and she may be able to help you a little bit better. Another teacher offered a suggestion. ForeFlight offers a 30-day free trial. That would be a good addition to classes if we are online. Thank you. I'll post that in the Google Classroom at the conclusion of this call. And then we had another person post. Thanks, Mark. I'll see you again at 10:30. So yes, you will. That's the TSA, or sorry, that's the aviation, or sorry, everything's running together. That's the engineering program update. This person posted, I'm a little bit confused on pathways. I saw a document that included Engineering 1 and Engineering 2 as an option in the aviation pathway. That is not an option, but we do have an aerospace engineering pathway, so that may be what you're referencing, and that would have students starting out in Engineering 1, going in through Engineering 2, and then aerospace engineering would be junior year, and then they could capstone or take a drones class or a computer science course or internship, co-op. There's a whole host of options, so maybe that's the pathway. That one will be covered at 10:30. We'll talk about the aerospace engineering pathway as well as the other 5 engineering pathways. So hopefully that answers your question. If confused at all, my email address is there on the screen in case you don't have it. Shoot me an email and we can set up a call, or my cell phone number is on the screen there as well if you want to shoot me a text or just give me a call and we can talk that out if that didn't answer your question. Without any other questions coming in, I'm going to go ahead and end this call. If you have signed up for the 10:30 session, I'll see you here in about 35 minutes. The TSA session is after lunch today. So I appreciate you joining, and I'll send out everything that I promised, like I said, no later than Monday. Thank you.